Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm delighted that you could join us, and my welcome added to that of Doug Poole from the UK Golf Federation. I'm delighted to see so many people taking part in this historic occasion, the first GolfBIC online. And I'm delighted to have been given the opportunity of moderating the first session with Rob Maxfield. Rob's the Chief Executive Officer of the Professional Golfers Association. And his technical details will have been available to you to read, so I'm not going to go over those again. I'm just going to say that I've been lucky enough to many years. In fact, I knew him before he was famous, which I'm delighted to be able to say. So, Rob, about a whole load of things to do with the Professional Golfers Association. Welcome, and perhaps you could start by telling us a little bit of the PGA's history.
Thanks, Jeff, and welcome everybody. I know we've got a lot of people have signed up. I don't know how many people are watching this session, but a lot of people have signed up to GolfBIC, which is brilliant. Having not seen many people for the last year, it's great to see people on screen quite often on Zoom calls and so on. So brilliant to be here. We've got a long relationship with GolfBIC, having supported it. The PGA has for many years. So, you know, to Doug Poole and also to Colin Jenkins from Ogro as well. You know, we're delighted to be supporting, and we know there's a lot of PGA members have signed up to this to these sessions this week. Yeah, so just starting with PGA history, really. Many of you will know this, but just to remind people, we were formed in 1901. That coincided at the turn of the century, where there were lots and lots of new golf courses being built, in particular in Great Britain and Ireland. America and various other countries tended to follow. There was no real industry at the time. Golf professionals at the time made golf balls, they made golf clubs. There weren't certainly managers managing golf facilities, and there probably weren't many clubhouses at the time. But a number of golf professionals got together. Our founding fathers are J.H. Taylor, Harry Varden and James Braid, the great triumvirate. They formed the association in 1901, and things went from there, really. The PGA itself, the organisation, we call ourselves the PGA, not the PGA Great Britain and Ireland, for the simple reason that we were the first. From 1901, PGA professionals visited other countries. They travelled to America, they travelled to Canada, they travelled to Australia and New Zealand, and they formed the other PGAs around the world. What you can say is that every PGA or any organisation that's got PGA in the name, the PGA European Tour or PGA Tour, all came from the original PGA, which is our PGA. So that gives you a little bit of history. We still have very, very much the same principles, and quite interestingly, actually, if you look at the I guess the framework of other PGAs around the world, including the ones I've mentioned, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many others, they do tend to follow the same framework. So we're very, very pleased that is the case. We have very, very much the same principles around educating members and supporting the wider industry. So that gives you a little bit of a potted history, Jeff, on the PGA.
Right, Rob, thanks very much indeed. Now, in your biographical details, some people will have spotted your early involvement with the Ryder role as somebody very much involved with running the Belfry. So you've been involved with the Ryder Cup, man, and perhaps you could say something about that and its crucial importance to the Professional Golfers Association.
Yeah, it is, and my background goes back to Belfry days, where, you know, Belfry has hosted 4 Ryder Cups. Nowhere in the world has hosted those 4 Ryder Cups. I was there for 3 of them, heading up the golf operation and various other operations at the Belfry. So wonderful times at the Belfry, at the bygone age, but, you know, great history there. I now sit on the Ryder Cup board. The PGA is the founding partner of the Ryder Cup, and a little bit, again, a potted history in the Ryder Cup, where there was a match actually played. If you look at the history, there was a match played at Glen Eagles in 1921. It wasn't a Ryder Cup match. It was a match that was played against Great Britain and Ireland professionals and American professionals, and it was the Americans that had come over for the Open. And while they were here, they decided to play an exhibition match. That's, I suppose, unofficially the first event of its kind that then led on to the Ryder Cup. It didn't happen again until 1926 at Wentworth. The match then happened at Wentworth, and there was a gentleman on the team called Abe Mitchell. And for those of you that don't know, this is a good quiz question. Abe Mitchell is the gentleman that sits atop of the Ryder Cup trophy. He was a PGA professional. He was at the time giving some golf lessons to Samuel Ryder, who was a penny seed merchant. He made a fortune on selling seed. Was a very wealthy individual, but had struggled with his health, and the doctor suggested to him to help him with the stresses of running a business that he should start to play golf. I'm not certain that golf helps with stress nowadays, but anyway, he started to play golf. It was suggested to him that he had some lessons, and he had those lessons with Abe Mitchell. Abe Mitchell played in that match at Wentworth in 1926 and invited Samuel Ryder to that match. And after the match, as is often the case, people got together for a glass of wine, a beer, or a cup of tea in the clubhouse. And Samuel Ryder thought the match was so fantastic that he actually said to all the professionals that we should do this again. And there was a guy called George Duncan, who was the PGA professional at the time at Wentworth, who said, well, we would do it again, Mr. Ryder, but we need a trophy. And at that match, he committed to donate a trophy, which he did. He commissioned the Ryder Cup trophy. It cost a few £100s at the time. And what he did in 1927, the first match that took place in America at Worcester Country Club in 1927, he actually betrothed the trophy to the Professional Golfers Association. We still have that deed of trust that Samuel Ryder personally wrote out, and in fact we recently had it valued. It's valued about £500,000. It sits in our heritage collection. So he betrothed the trophy to the PGA. We keep it now in trust, so we own the trophy. And interesting how the Ryder Cup has moved on over the years. In 1981 in Walton Heath, the PGA actually that ran the trophy, that ran the matches then, actually paid Walton Heath £50,000 to rent the golf course. You wind the clock forward to France last time, where the French government committed something like €100 million to host the match. So how things have changed. And of course, we now work in partnership with the European Tour, who are the managing partner. And also we have a development trust managed by CPG. So that again, Jeff, is a bit of a potted history. So yeah, the Ryder Cup is important to the PGA.
Okay, thank you. Now, I mean, like much professional sport, things have been postponed by the COVID crisis. And of course, the Ryder Cup match has been postponed because of that. And you've touched on the financial importance of it. Are there any implications to worry about financially because of that postponement?
There isn't, Jeff. No, I mean the match runs on a 4-year cycle anyway. So the Ryder Cup itself, the structure of it, when it's in America, it's run by the PGA of America. When it's in Europe, it's run by PGA. It's run by Ryder Cup Europe. So the cycle runs on a 4-year cycle anyway. So financially, that's how the cycle runs. Now it's moved to 5 years. There is a slight change to the finances, but nothing terribly concerning, and it's something that is just managed as part of day-to-day PGAs of Europe. Ryder Cup Europe's responsibilities. Okay,
thanks. Now, obviously we touched on COVID now, but you've been very much involved with the leading bodies of the golf business and the golf organisations in the UK and indeed beyond, with all the advice you've been able to give about how we cope with this disaster that has been the coronavirus crisis. Perhaps you could say a little bit about what the role has been of the PGA and how, speaking from the outside, I get the feeling that there's been a new era of cooperation between the bodies that, let's be honest, sometimes in the past were a little bit cantankerous and too cooperative with each other, but that's all changed, it seems.
It has, Jeff. That for me has been, there's not many positive things have come out this last year, but one of the positive things for golf has been the cooperation between the governing bodies. Golf is, I do think, quite fragmented. There are lots of bodies dealing with different aspects of golf. And one of the very, very positive things that has come out is the cooperation between those bodies. We've come together under the All-Parliamentary Golf Group, working under Craig Tracy, who I know is speaking later this week. So massive cooperation. Every single week we've tended to have a call. We've had 7 or 8 or even 10 or 15 bodies sometimes come onto that call. So that's been incredibly positive. And many of you will have seen the messages that have gone out across both Great Britain and Ireland regarding opening up and what the rules are and what the different different lockdown rules are, and so on. And all of that has been coordinated together. So it's been incredibly positive. The PGA, when we went into that lockdown on, I think it was the 23rd of March last year, you know, everybody, I guess holds their breath as to what is going to happen. And we as a PGA, you know, nobody was quite certain how it would affect our members. Nobody was quite certain how it would affect the association and its finances. And I can remember that, in fact, in the weeks before we went into lockdown, myself and my senior team met every single day, every single morning, sometimes for 2 or 3 hours, just trying to plan exactly what we would do if we went into lockdown, because I think it was inevitable at the time. And we had 3 topics of conversation. The first one being PGA members, the second one being staff, and the third one being finance. Just trying to understand how it would affect those 3 different groupings. We chose in those early days not to furlough many PGA staff. We could have furloughed a lot because we have a big tournament operation and a big regional operation. We chose not to furlough many staff. We made a decision very early on in early April to phone every single one of our 8,000 members. We've got about 1,600 of those members working in 80 countries around the world. We got through to 90+% of those members. And what we were trying to do is understand what their needs were, what help and support they needed. And very, very quickly, by the end of April, we were giving quite extensive support, I suppose, to about 500 individual members that were struggling maybe financially or struggling to access government support and so on. We also at the time, and we'll probably move on to this later, an expansion of the PGA's membership structures. We want to be supporting golf clubs. So at the same time as calling members, we called a couple of thousand golf clubs. We got through to 2,000 or so golf clubs during lockdown. We spoke to the chair, we spoke to the manager of the facility, again, offering some support and help. And in fact, we did a webinar last week, an additional webinar, extending it beyond our members for those golf clubs. And we got about 600 or 700 people on that call. So we are continuing to support golf clubs. We set up helplines. We've got 8 different helplines now, an international helpline, and then broken down into our regions. So that's still active on our COVID hub. We think our COVID hub is probably the most extensive hub. We've had a look at other hubs around the world and around GB&I, and it is incredibly extensive. It talks about government support. And one of the big challenges when we came into this crisis was, you know, there was government support available, but understanding how people could access that support and what support was available to different businesses and different individuals was quite challenging. So we got a team of people together analysing that support. And we put it all together, and again that sits on the COVID hub. One of the big challenges, of course, that we face being an organisation that covers Great Britain and Ireland, we're actually dealing with 5 different governments: Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales. So all the time, and even now, there's a huge effort in trying to understand as we come out of lockdown now exactly what that means for those 5 different countries. So that took up huge amounts of time, but we think we did a pretty decent job, certainly judging by the amount of emails that I received and my senior staff received, and different managers in the PGA and staff members. It was overwhelming that certainly PGA members and the wider industry felt that we did a decent job in communicating with them and keeping them informed. We also started a series of webinars and podcasts, and we've now done something like 20 or 30 in the last year. We've actually done about 9 so far this year. And the popularity of the webinars has been incredible. We've been having up to 1,000 people on each webinar. I think the lowest we've got to is about 300 or 400. And those webinars are there. We bring in PGA members, we bring in people from the industry, and it's an opportunity, I guess, for people to sign in. It's an opportunity for people to ask questions. It's an opportunity to hear how other people are coping through this crisis. So that's been incredibly well received. And one of the other interesting things I think that's come out of this crisis, it's in the news a lot, is mental health. And with the support of the RNA, we've set up a mental health line for PGA members. That's been incredibly well received by members. We're also providing individual support if people need counselling or whatever. We're able to provide that as well as with the support that the RNA have been able to help us with. So it's been all encompassing for everybody, hasn't it? I mean, what a year it's been. But I think overriding, I think that one of the real positive things, I think, for golf in general is that we have come together. And what we're trying to do now as we come out of lockdown, we're trying to stick together, because I'm a great believer that this industry needs to stick together. We need common goals. we need, if there is to be a junior initiative, let's just have one junior initiative. Let's have individual bodies create different initiatives. I think now is the time to get that consistency and build on, the great work of working together during this crisis.
Yeah. Do any individual actions particularly stick out for you, Rob? I mean, there's so many people who have faced this challenge in some imaginative ways to tackle the problems that it's given up. Are there any pointers that you can give to us with some really great ideas that you've come across?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting actually talking over the past 2 or 3 weeks to, in particular, golf clubs. I know there'll be a lot of people on this call who are representing golf clubs or maybe managing facilities, or maybe they're the PGA Pro at the golf club. I think what this crisis has again done is it's got people to open up to the fact that looking after your customers, your members, the people that visit your driving range, the people that visit your facilities, I think everybody's turboed on that. Everybody has very, very much stepped up a gear. And I again think that bodes very, very well for coming out of lockdown. I think it bodes well for the potential boom that we're going to go through. It was interesting. We're on a call this week with 3 facilities, one in Ireland, 2 in England. And those facilities all talked about the great job that they've done around communicating with their members. It's interesting that we've had a mixed bag of some facilities that have given reductions on subscriptions. We've had others that haven't. We've had others that, in fact, one of the calls earlier this week, they've decided to give some reductions now where they weren't giving reductions earlier in the year. But getting those members absolutely engaged and connected with the facility, be it a driving range, be it a golf club, has been the big takeaway for me, Jeff. I think communication has been brilliant. I think the facilities that have done it well have put themselves in a very, very strong position. We also, I think some of the numbers that came out from sports marketing surveys were roundage. I think last year was up 12%. You got average golf clubs taking in 70 new members. The real key now going forward is going to be keeping those members, absolutely keeping those members, looking after them, keeping them connected and engaged with the facilities, doing whatever you need to do that. But that has been a massive, massive takeout. And I think it's a massive positive thing for Jeff, for golf, Jeff, that people are communicating a lot better than they were.
There's some evidence that the age profile of golfers has come down, isn't there?
Yeah, there is actually. It's interesting. I've got a young lad. He's 16 years of age. I've got a daughter who's 17 years of age. They've not played a lot of golf in their time. They used lockdown last year to play golf. I was dropping my lad off at 7 o'clock in the morning, 5 days a week last summer because he's obviously not in school. My daughter was playing 2 or 3 times a week with a boyfriend. I think it's been brilliant, Jeff. I think it's opened it up. I think because maybe other sport wasn't accessible, maybe you couldn't go to a football game. I think it's opened it up. The other interesting thing, and again, I think this came out from the sports marketing survey analysis, was we've also had lots of people coming back to the game. Maybe I think golf is one of those games, isn't it, where you maybe start playing at a young age, you go to university, you get a family, you maybe have expenses that you didn't have when you were a child, when you were living at home, and you maybe drop out of the game. I think the other thing that we've seen is those 35-year-olds, those 40-year-olds, maybe that haven't played golf for 20 years are now coming back. You certainly see, and I visited a driving range with my lad back end of last year, my daughter, and there were a couple of people in the shop buying new golf clubs, and the pro up there I asked him, are these people new to the game? And they used to play cricket. They're not going to play cricket anymore. They're going to play golf. So again, really, really positive news for golf, this. And I think now is absolutely the key to take advantage of this as we come back out of lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that people watching this broadcast will take advantage of their presence on the GolfBIC site to look at the exhibition, because there are some exhibitors that we've got displaying ideas who are into the idea of making golf more fun, and that seems to me to be critical in this keeping of newcomers that have taken up the result of COVID.
I think it is, Jeff, and it's really interesting. I mean, my lads started to play more golf last year. They actually relaxed the rules in the golf club, and one of the reasons, and I guess this is a particular generation that this would apply to, but one of the main reasons my lad wouldn't play golf is the golf club didn't allow him to have his shirt out of his trousers. He hates tucking his shirt in his trousers for some reason. So I think the other thing I've seen as well is I think people are beginning to look at maybe some of the rules, maybe some of the things that maybe are a detractor to people coming into this game. And yeah, if somebody has to open their shirt and they don't have to tuck their shirt in, is that the worst thing in the world? I don't think so. So I think it has given golf clubs that opportunity, that impetus, maybe to look at some of their rules and start opening up a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think this is the first interview I've ever conducted with a CEO of the PGA when he wasn't wearing a tie.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. Yeah, I think it's made us all think, hasn't it, about, I didn't think it was appropriate to put a tie on maybe at home, because I certainly don't wear a tie most of the time. In fact, actually, the first time, Jeff, I've put a jacket on in about 6 months. Yeah. But I think we live in a different age, and I think if we are going to appeal in particular to youngsters, gone are the days where mobile phones are banned in clubhouses. Gone are the days where you can't have fantastic Wi-Fi. Gone are the days where, we talk about attracting more women into this game. There was a great survey done recently where it talked about one of the most important things for a woman joining a golf club is it's got to have great coffee. It's certainly one of my great things in a golf club. I want to have great coffee when I go to the golf club. So I think, again, you've got to appeal to those that you're trying to attract. You've got to appeal to your future customers. I think it's really, really important.
Okay. Well, one of the big things that you were dealing with last year, apart from the immediate problems of coronavirus, was work to develop a 2020 vision for the PGA moving forward. And there's been a lot of publicity about that. There's quite a lot on the PGA stand, will be in our exhibition area. But I think with you in the hot seat, perhaps you could introduce the topic to us.
Yeah, I'd like to, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned customers a few times, and I think any business, one of my real key philosophies in management is you've got to be clear who your customers are. You need to be absolutely clear who your customers are. I worked at the Belfry for many years, and for those of you that have been to the Belfry, some would argue it's not the best hotel in the world. The one thing we did do is we punched above our weight when it came to looking after customers. We were absolutely clear what our customers wanted. We talked to them. We communicated with them. If we had a complaint, we dealt with it. So being very, very focused on your customers is absolutely critical. And it doesn't matter if you're running a hotel like the Belfry, if you're running the PGA, it doesn't matter if you're running a little golf shop or you're running a little sweet shop. You have to be focused on your customers. And one of the things, I think, going back before 2020 Vision, I became chief executive in 2017. And one of the things that I always very much felt with the PGA in years gone by, that we'd probably lost sight of our customers. And I think it's very, very important that you get connected with your customers. And certainly in those first early years, first early months, I should say, when I took over as chief executive, I wanted to make it very, very clear to the membership that they were the reason that the association existed. I talked earlier about the PGA being formed by golf professionals. At some point, a team of staff came along, whenever that was. And that's when I guess it became more complicated, because it wasn't just about members looking after each other. A team of staff were involved. And as I say, I very much felt that the 140 staff that we now have at the PGA probably lost sight a little bit of the importance of the membership. One of the first things I did was to create a vision. I watched a great YouTube video that then led me on to reading his book. A guy called Simon Sinek wrote a great book, and as I say, if you Google it and look it up on YouTube, you'll see Start With Why. All organisations need to understand why they exist, and it's something that I started to think about in about 2015 and 16, and I came up with the PGA's why, and that is now our mission statement. And the PGA's why is to improve the personal and professional lives of members. That's the reason that we exist. That's the reason I come into work. That's the reason all the 140 staff come into work. We also have a vision to be the best members association in sport. So we want to be the best association in sport. We also want to focus on our members. So the one thing that I guess I probably underestimated when I took over as chief executive is the change of culture that was required. And we've got a brilliant team of people. I need to focus that team of people on the membership. And if you look forward to where we are now, I believe we're at a point now where we are 100% focused on our members. I would argue maybe in those early days we weren't. That mission statement of improving the personal and professional lives of members trips off the tongue of most of our staff. If you met them and you ask them what the mission statement is, I'm pretty certain that they'll rattle that off. And everything that we do as an organisation has to come back to our members. Every single day of my life, if I'm doing something that isn't improving the personal and professional lives of members, I do question why I'm doing it. So that is probably, going back to 2017, a starting point. I did, however, feel and had felt from probably about 2013-14, prior to becoming chief executive, that there is an opportunity for the association to play a broader role in supporting the workforce for the industry. I mentioned earlier when the PGA was formed in 1901, the industry were the golf professionals. If you look at the situation now, we've got managers, we have chair of golf clubs, we have catering staff, we have now adventure golf, we have driving ranges, we have an industry that's grown around people playing the game through golf club development and so on. So it's a huge industry now. About 80,000 people now work in our industry. The other thing we also have is we have about 40,000 plus volunteers that work in the industry, those that serve at golf club level and beyond, helping junior sections and so on. And I always felt that there was an opportunity for the PGA, rather than becoming, I guess, an association of golf professionals, there was an opportunity for us to become an association of professionals in the business of golf. And that is slightly different. And my definition of that was I wanted to be able to expand the membership structure to take in anybody that worked in the business of golf or anybody that volunteered in the industry of golf. I met with my board in the early days of becoming chief exec and presented this vision to them. And we all very much felt that the first year or two was about really focusing the staff on our current membership, which we did. And about 2.5 years ago, I presented a business plan to the board that encompassed not just expanding our membership, but also supporting our members in greater ways, our traditional or our core members. That business plan was presented, and for the last 2.5 years, we've been working on the development of this new structure. This new structure now encompasses a number of things. One of the things that our members told us, we did a survey back in 2017, and there were a couple of things that our members told us. One of the things was that they wanted to be able to differentiate themselves from fellow members. In that survey, it also showed that PGA professionals are carrying out something like 50 plus different roles in the industry, from architects to the traditional role of the pro to managers and so on. That survey showed that members wanted to be able to differentiate themselves. Up until quite recently, every single PGA professional was called a PGA professional. The other thing that they wanted is they wanted to be able to specialize. They wanted to be able to specialize. And one of the other really interesting things that came out was 30% of our PGA professionals, our membership of 8,000, were in some type of management position. So this gave us some clues really as to what was important to the core membership. So as part of the 2020 vision, we've now split our core membership into 3 categories. PGA professional, which would tend to be the role of the traditional pro working at the club. We now have PGA coach, so members can now refer to themselves as PGA coach. And interestingly, we had a very positive conversation my staff did with David Ledbetter, who's also a PGA professional. And he's opted to call himself a PGA coach, a PGA master coach, actually. He's attained that master status. So that's gone down very positively with him and a number of other coaches. And then the third strand is PGA manager, recognizing the fact that many of our members are now in management. And so far, when we launched this just before Christmas, we gave all PGA professionals the opportunity to recategorize. And there are upwards of about 1,000 members that have now either defined themselves as a PGA coach or a PGA manager. What we've also at the same time done is we're going to start to develop different pathways. So eventually we will have a pathway into management and a pathway into coaching, where at the moment a PGA professional has to go through 3 years of a foundation degree with the University of Birmingham or the Highlands and Islands. In the future, from probably about October 2022, the intention is that somebody coming into training can actually specialize to become a golf manager or a coach. So that was a massive part of what we were doing. The other stuff that came out of the 2020 survey was the members felt we ought to be supporting them more in terms of learning and development and so on. So again, as part of 2020 vision, we worked with a lot of focus groups. We talked to members about this all the way through this whole work that has taken about 2 years. My mantra was, we want this to be world class. We want everything that we do to be as good as anywhere else in the world. We've recently, just before Christmas, launched a new learning platform called PGA Learn. I describe it as the Netflix of golf. If you go on there, there are upwards of about 1,000 different seminars, different courses, different videos that you can watch. And all of those different elements have been broken down into the core elements of the industry. So you've got stuff on the wider industry, you've got stuff on PGA Pro, you've got stuff on coach and manager and so on. So PGA Learn, for those members on this diving into this webinar, hopefully you've seen it. We've had a massive uptake of membership. We've had something like 50% of our members have been onto PGA Learn, which is huge for us. In the past, the old learning platform had about 6%. We've also developed a library of information. That library of information is accessible again to anybody that's a member. That's information on health and safety. It's information on running your club, running your business. Again, a huge library of information. I mentioned the webinars that we've done. We've now extending that beyond just webinars and podcasts. We've got networking opportunities. We're just about to launch a series of events that probably are almost certainly going to connect to golf, but also some networking events, some conference type opportunities where people can talk with people that come from similar backgrounds and similar parts of the industry. We've opened up some forums on the site where members have an opportunity to share thoughts and ideas. These sort of things tend to happen ad hoc anyway on things like WhatsApp and so on, but we've created a platform. We stepped up with our communication. We've got some great email communication that goes to PGA members. We're just about to launch a Connect membership to the new categories of membership that we'll talk about in just a while. And we're very, very excited about in the coming weeks, in the coming month or so, we're going to be announcing a quarterly industry magazine that will be very, very special. That's going to come out around about June time. So that is on the cards and is being working on at the moment. And we've also extended our member support. We've got a team of about 15 people on the road that any member of the PGA can pick the phone up to, and they can get some support either if they're having some difficulties at the club, or they want some employment advice, or they want some help and support in anything that they're doing. We even support on things like mental health and things like that I mentioned earlier. So huge support. So by creating all of these services, it absolutely fundamentally supports our core membership, our PGA professionals and now PGA managers and PGA coaches. But my vision was also to create, as I said, this industry of professionals in the business of golf, not just an association of golf professionals. So we've now created two membership categories, one being the business management group and one being club volunteer. The business management group is open to anybody that works in the industry. You could be somebody that is new to the industry. You could be an executive. We've had a number of senior executives from the industry that have recently joined. Doug Poole joined last week as an example. Neil Howie from Callaway recently joined. Matt Johnson from Acushnet. And right the way, the plethora of individuals that have joined us is very, very extensive now. We're getting lots and lots of people coming into business management group. All of those things I talked about, networking opportunities, library, PGA Learn, world-class communications, the industry magazine, all of those become accessible to anybody in the business management group. Club Volunteer does what it says on the tin. It's about club volunteers, and that's about the chair of the golf club. It's about the chair of maybe the Greens convening committee. It might be about the junior organizer. We want everybody, as I describe it, I use this term quite a lot, inside the PGA tent. Because again, I talk about it being a fragmented industry. What we do want is we want everybody in the tent so we can all start talking together and working together. Because as I said earlier, it's absolutely fundamental that we work together as an industry. It's fundamental that those people either managing the facility or being the PGA Pro or the chair of the facility are talking the same language. We all need to be on the same page. So again, our commitment to the wider industry is that we want to bring people together. And ultimately, we see very, very much our role now in supporting the entire industry and all the things that I've just talked about, Jeff.
Okay, and how's that been received by the industry establishment?
Massively well received, Jeff. Clearly, and what this in essence does is the new structure of the PGA, in essence, anybody up until this point, to become a member of the PGA, you had to be a golf professional. You had to go through a 3-year training program. That's now changed in that anybody can come and join the PGA. You don't need to have a qualification. You just need to be working in the industry. You know, over the past 2 or 3 years, in particular with PGA Pros, I've spent a lot of time, and my team have talking to the PGA Pros about the value of having everybody in one tent, in the PGA tent. So it's been very, very well supported by PGA members. We see the membership sees it as very, very much a positive thing. In fact, I've had one negative comment. I've had lots and lots of positive comments. And for the wider industry, Jeff, again, it's been very, very positive and supportive. If I take my role at the Belfry, if you'd have read my profile, I'm not a professional golfer. I'm an amateur. I play off at a decent handicap, and I value playing as an amateur golfer. Having spent nearly 20 years working at the Belfry in a senior management position, there wasn't any individual organisation that I could join as a professional in the business of golf. And very, very much I wanted to create an opportunity so people like the Rob Maxfields of old could come in, could access services, could access support. And again, Jeff, the positivity around the industry has been huge, and that's testament to how many people are now coming towards us and interested in joining.
Right, a few minutes left, so I'll just widen the opportunity to ask questions to the whole audience. If you have anything, then please contact us with your questions. I've got one or two more to keep the session going for another 10 minutes or so, but feel free to join in. You've talked a lot about the organisation, and I know you've got a regional structure as well as the sort of central point at the Belfry, and that's been established for many years. Is that going to continue, or indeed is it going to grow to cope with the new structure?
Yeah, it will continue, Jeff, is my point. I mean, it's interesting actually, and I think we've seen this with devolved government, where countries have become very nationalistic. Individuals in Scotland will tend to now look towards the Scottish Parliament before they look towards the Parliament in London. And I think the same in so many ways with our regional structure. We've got a great regional structure. We've got a great regional team. And quite often, people want to talk about regional matters. People want maybe local regional support. So rather than everything being built around the centre, we very, very much see a lot of the support that is driven either through networking events, through helplines and so on, being driven by that regional support. So, but it is going to be a combination, Jeff. I guess it's a little bit like a relationship. I come from a hotel background where you have hotels and you have a head office. Well, I always felt within De Vere Hotels, head office's job was to support the hotels. So our hotels are our regions. Head office is the Belfry, the equivalent of a hotel. So our job at headquarters at the Belfry is to support the regions that ultimately support our staff. So absolutely fundamentally, Jeff, yeah, the regions are really important for delivering tournaments, and that local support that I think is absolutely critical when you come down to local issues.
Okay. You mentioned Birmingham University and the Highlands and Islands University, and those have obviously been involved in the education of PGA members for years now, and you have your degree ceremony, which you've kindly invited me to attend at Birmingham. Yep. Do you see that growing to cope with the structure of that you've been outlining?
Yeah, I do, Jeff. It's one of the I guess really important initiatives that Sandy Jones, my predecessor, brought in was this relationship working with Carl Philpotts, the relationship with the University of Birmingham that's now been extended to Scotland with the University of Highlands and Islands. If you go back to PGA education, it's interesting when you go back to even as early as the 1950s. To become a PGA professional, you needed a proposer and a seconder, and those two individuals needed to both be PGA professionals, and then you were in. Back in the 50s, Henry Cotton actually started to suggest to the association that we needed a more formal education. The industry was becoming more sophisticated, and we even look now at fitting and coaching and so on. That's a lot more sophisticated than it was. It was Henry Cotton in those early days that suggested that we needed an education, and that education started in the 60s. At the time, it was about PGA members who we as an association wrote the material. It was PGA members that delivered that material, and it was the association that accredited PGA professionals with a certificate to say that they had qualified as a PGA professional. The relationship with the University of Birmingham and the University of Highlands and Islands, I believe, just takes it that one step up. And I think nowadays, where we see lots and lots of young people in particular wanting a qualification, wanting a degree in, it might be medicine, it might be legal, it might be psychology, as my daughter's doing it. There might be all sorts of things. I think most young people now want some type of qualification, and certainly as a father, I want my kids to have a qualification. So I think moving to, I guess, an education that was connected with a educational institute was a masterstroke, really, and that's just so important. I talked about professionalizing the industry. If this industry is going to grow, we need professional managers, we need professional people as PGA professionals, we need professional people managing different aspects of the industry. So having that credibility of a Russell Group university, top 20 universities in the country with the University of Birmingham, is really, really important to us. For those of you that know this, apologies for repeating it, but it is worth repeating that we do train anybody who becomes a PGA professional and in the future will become a manager or a coach to foundation degree. Foundation degree, for the educationalists amongst you, you'll know, is 2 years of a full degree. What we have done recently with the University of Birmingham, we've agreed that after the foundation degree, a member of the PGA will then be able to top that up to a full degree. So having a full degree with the University of Birmingham and the University of Highlands Islands is absolutely critical, Jeff, because we now work in a very, very sophisticated industry. You know, golf clubs don't have waiting lists any longer. The manager of the golf club is expected to be a marketing expert. The manager is expected to be a financial expert. The PGA professional is expected to be able to sell memberships and do all of those critical things that are so important to the club. And most of this is going to be enhanced by having the right education. So in answer to your question, Jeff, it's absolutely critical for us. And in many ways, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be building on that.
Right. Okay. We're approaching the end of our allotted time, Rob, and obviously we've got to talk about the future. The whole purpose of this conference to look for golf's new normal. What are your thoughts in general for wrapping up the point of the future of golf?
Yeah, I think the future is bright. I think golf has a lot to do still. I think the bodies working together, as I've mentioned a couple of times, I think is critical. People coming into the game need to be signposted to very, very clear development initiatives. And as I say, it's no good having 10 junior initiatives in Great Britain. Let's just have one. I'm a great believer in that, and it's something I would like to, be pushing for in the coming weeks and years ahead. I think we've gone from a stage where golf clubs didn't have waiting lists. Many golf clubs are now having waiting lists. But looking after your customers and now competing with other sport, with cricket we talked about earlier, with football and other sports, is going to be absolutely critical. And I think, I've in the past been critical. I've been critical of my golf club on occasions for not being welcoming and not being opening up to people. I think we have to look at rules. I think we have to look at the way that golf clubs operate. I think they need to be more welcoming. They need to be more welcoming to kids. They need to be more welcoming to ethnic groups, to more women. We have to shape this, this label of being a middle class, while male-dominated sport. I think we have to become more family friendly. The R&A doing some great work with our Women in Golf Charter. But I think the great thing that we have is we're going to have a lot of people wanting to come and play golf. The real litmus test for me is that golf clubs in particular, they are the people at the coalface, are absolutely stepping up to make sure that every single person that comes through their facility, knocks on the door and inquires about a membership, or starts to join and starts to play the game and needs to be welcomed into the golf club. Everybody's going to have to work very, very hard, I believe, for golf to succeed, as the R&A keep saying, in the next 50 years, to keep these people. I think there's governing bodies. I think, we're a governing body. I do believe that the support needs to be put at the coalface. I've talked about us as an organisation. My mantra is we're here to support our members. It's our members that grow the game. It isn't me who sits in an office at the Belfry. The people in the governing bodies, I think putting more people into seats in offices is not going to grow our game. I think providing that support at the coalface, in particular to golf clubs, is absolutely critical, and it's certainly something that we at the PGA are trying to do. But I think the future is really, really bright, Jeff. We just need to take advantage. Every single person that comes into this game, we've got to welcome them with open arms. We've got to absolutely communicate with them, as we've been doing over the last 12 months, even when we come out of lockdown. And we've just got to embrace these people. And I think we've got that opportunity now. We've got some great conversations taking place with government. You know, I'd like to see, you know, I describe cycling as the darling sport. You know, everybody seems to have a bike nowadays. Everybody talks about getting on their bike at the weekend. Wouldn't it be fantastic if everybody talks about getting on the golf course at the weekend? And I think we have that opportunity. It's a game you can play. As long as you can walk, you can play golf. Even when you can't walk, you can jump in a buggy and play golf. That's the opportunity that we have. But we've all got to play our bit. It's really, really important.
Right. Well, the future is exciting, and the future is a lot to look forward to, I think, Rob, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you so much for your contribution this morning, and thank you so much for your support generally with our initiative to put GolfBIC online. I urge members of the audience to visit the PGA stand and, of course, all the other stands we have in the exhibition hall. That's where you need to go on the website, the exhibition hall. All will be opened up to you if you go there. Rob, many thanks. It's been lovely to see you. And I hope it won't be too long before we can see each other in real life, for real. And I would say, have a nice day. But I think that's the wrong show, isn't it?
It is. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks to everybody for joining us. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.